John de DJ Shabon Rajambo Yang Rebo Don Shatsa de Bon de Washibon Juden Chenbo Jubo de Kalo Jawa Lana Mebo Lado Menon Jumbo Sanje John de Bejawa Yang Bobo Shansi Jozo Je 光子光年所知道，大见的那公报的过，马年决定的那出节送，别再给我就那上次，那到个就都做上，一些叫做世界人波，找不决定所那让给我，公布去年就那上次。 在这颠簸正面到夜宵，先多找我就那相子，留着见着随波送梦见，两面前见就那相子。广播突厥接电波，当街见别电波，三那云电叫做街，电线写了相子，道别的桥着我就给月归送列住。 基督得到救主不先觉这那相存，这点这月那样的老婆到老肉多，先给当把一点点给这那样相存，六把这样没交心，给我别送做把心，让给三年用手的天天上街两把。 伽玛热热玛咩当，就玛西瓦就玛，灭拉罗达真达布，对西就那地达达，萨那地狱当机在巴耶，高空当年全就着地。 嘎达那达七月老主月，随便做点周我周我周。
Thus I have heard. At one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Vulture Peak Mountain, with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of phenomena called profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should the son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Sharadvati Putra with these words. With men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen purely in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure. They neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight, and so on, until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance, and so on, up to no old age and death, and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell on the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Soha. Shariputra, this is how a Bodhisattva Mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, noble Avalokiteshvara, that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Sharadvati Putra and noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoice and praise the words of the Blessed One.
Kanda sibe cha mare me don dogen chezue dozo kena buji da ze ya la zhu ji yang de song do da che zhu ni mu ni lo le zhe zhao zhu zhu zi ji mare me ze dogen nyu gu chi ni jun zi re zhe nong Dene daje saje daje yuden le jaze to yego jeda jeda jene jede dale mese jabe yana de o ara bazana de o ara bazana de ara bazana de zede chuje chero yeze dale demo me ba razene kada denje jon lo do ba yi lo de ba be no lo ya zo ya lo je be Shaji Zuo De La Suo De Doji Chenpo De Xin Doji Chang Chuzi De Lo Bodong Naro Bang Bian Chu Zhong Bian Bodong Ade Shang Yang Li Xin Lo Ji La Suo De Shang Bo Tong Mi Yin Nian Nang Zhu De Chu De De Yue De Dang Zhou Bian Bian 在座各萨罗尼苏联巴，家亲识别接了所望的，家人有名书记留着当，大碗这把这边可有见，三界个牛爸爸有厕所。 法摩大业接了所望的，协助当别中啊阿爹上，嘎当点别面部中正见，研究这口气送了所，嘎当老妈当了所望的，刚见是的自己中啊我到这边我学节早见。 当我点别道不给主见，要是就把了所望的，就算跟着老妈都坚强，看了刚的些年去做年，觉得天幕我做总在边，这些老妈拿了所望的，让家所着跟了到一面。 给上他把这边叫我叫，这边这边他看这把眼，甚至些年拿了说我的，叫我更多养到那么大，这边去这边了弄时间，撒到浪迹远的绕多年，多久强给过。 我觉得会说三界就能做的，就能了想就不多大年就算，大概切切这边做难见，到了偏些三界就不说三界就能做。 就能了想就不多大年就做见。 大概切切这边错难见，到了边些三界诸不修，三界就初界就能了，想就不多大年就做，大概切切这边错难见，到了边些三界诸不修。哎呀！ 当我说，你对这条件哪个这？你多大年了，小娃呢？你多嘛跟我去吧，这娃是那的。啊，给够多，给你们的把提的啊，你够没得。
You need to unmute, Lima.
你去够没得
Unmute.
Oh, okay.
哎呀，
무지 권능 돼. 예. 그라게 예 딜이야데 뮤트 샤샤다. 시에데 생각 돈도. Okay, sorry, I keep talking. As usual, cultivating motivations.
아, 됐지. 아니 토마키노 줘봐 대야 대전 가서 찾아나기 제 아니 소전 가서 지 대전 다다 쿠유되게 제시나 소지 지고서는 이제 많이 봐. 아니 지 덤바 투병 벌 라레 집에 라마니 거더서게 데달라. 아니 다랑다랑냐게 신제나. 아니 지 대두 시산도 어디 인도나 해도 요야사네. 아니 가서 키노 줘야다.
So let's begin our, setting our motivations for the cultivation of appropriate motivations by visualizing Buddha in front of oneself, in before oneself in the space, surrounded by all those gurus, teachers of masters of the Lam Rim, and being yourself in their presence, surrounded by all sentient beings. And imagine that you are in a place where you can ask to help, or where you can request them to, alleviate your sufferings. So we encourage ourselves to extract the essence of our life, our human, our precious human rebirth. Therefore, we find right from the beginning of our Lam Rim outline where it says Devetyang Nyimbulemba, which means to extract. One must extract the essence of human rebirth and make this meaningful and purposeful. With this kind of, cultivated with motivations, let's take 2 to 3 minutes to meditate.
다들 얘기는 쳐봐지냐나 간세 봐서 있죠. 아니 뒤손저 상자나 시사기 난가. 그러와. 그래서 카투시와 있는 뒤손저 상자나 시비시 랑 아니 슈저 상자나제니 랑게 아니 마비치발레 세와 이제 챔버 깨는 하네. 아니 랑게 아니 달라말라세나레 아니 랑게 아니 제 저서 지 투세와 챔버가는 담바제베니 상주 랑제련 봐. 그러와.
With these motivations, we are receiving teachings, profound teachings of the path, which has been path that has been ventured by all those Buddhas of the 3 times, and such teachings have given to the followers by those enlightened beings by means of their compassion and love for their followers, such as ourselves.
맞아, 지단이나 배나 뒤송지 상전나 시베기 랑들 용치모 싫어지 바로데 심바 송여로. 송여로데 용치모 싫어지 바로데 심바기 랑가노는 로알라 상제살라 해발라. 아니 샹주 랑지는 바세네레 자체 쇼바 매매 초지로. 아니 자체 이름바 양랑로 로발라. 니 샹주 랑레 치모로 오치라니. 다이 가서 미데 샹주 랑레 치모스는 미세기 gelug이 출루소네 지게체 마로와. 니 랑지는 바. 드레질로 호사기 니 쇼지티 지샹이게 오늘 전에 뒤징에 넣어 나게 니 그지 냐래지 맞제다마도 제나 랑가 데마도 러서 메비 소리지 너 드레지게 니 최소마질 최바대야 소생관에 게나 나 교화시는 서 보러와
So normally when we speak about all the Buddhas of the three times who relied upon such a method or the path, normally it refers to Lam Rim Chenmo, the great mother of Prajaparamita, the great mother of Prajaparamita, or the great mother of perfection wisdom. However, in order to train oneself and practice oneself and develop one's realizations of perfection wisdoms, one needs to first venture on the path or Geche Lam, which means the wider path or the vast path which allows us to achieve the state of enlightenment. So in order to travel through such path, it is a particular teachings, the state, the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, which is Lam Rim Chenmo, is one of the primary factor for opening our entrance for reaching state of enlightenment. When speaking about this Lam Rim Chenmo, the teachings of Lam Rim Chenmo, the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment, it is not just mere Gelug tradition or the Gelugpa tradition. Rather, this is a kind of treatise or the text which encapsulates entire teachings of the Buddha, which is set up in such a convenient way of practicing, beginning from the beginning path all the way to the state of enlightenment. So therefore, one should feel oneself as very fortunate to be able to have such opportunity to receive such a great, profound teachings.
진짜지라 맞돌아 상추 세기 파데요에나 마음바는 가서 산제기 세비 제야 되노와 당가로 저기 파데니 이제 상추기 세데 찾고 거 마도 파진다 차소는 현다 제로로와 대노 영아서 단다디 추데 가르를 체에서나 랑기 파다오데 니 제세 제이세 도베 산제제 예니 갈라 세레 제예 파질을 체되어 인자는 다디부게 된 예바데 제토데 소소고는 라레 도고
So therefore, Bodhisattva is said to be the father of Bodhisattva is said to be the father and father of the Buddhas. And again here, in order for one to become a children of the victorious one need to embark upon such a path or the skillful means of the method. So therefore, it is here we are taking our time to become oneself as a child of victorious ones.
나도 가는 초속에 제안에 메시면도 파가를 소보기를 분자리 제시가 말에 손여로 왔어. 아니 이제 미지기 파들을 상주 생이요이나 이제 상제산으로 빼자네. 상주 생의 동료도에 실현을 파마이 빼자네. 아니 파가를 별로 아니 수 그게 소보지리 제시가 말에 손도아. This is also Susuman and Sanatoyana, Dangaso read with the card head or Sasona, Saja Salaro, reach the chet your Machi, Peri Sonichi, but Payangina. The recall of Susu, that Susuman to show Maro at Pekachamaredo.
So therefore, we need to, in order to become oneself as the victorious son, and one need to first try to becoming oneself as a victorious son. One should have a father who actually produces the big victorious son. So we can't rely upon any kind of father that can produce, by imagine just thinking that this can be produced as the son of the victorious ones. That cannot be happened. So therefore, in order for one to become a Buddha's son, one need to rely upon a father who can produce the Buddha's son, who can produce the victorious son.
That's it. That Tendriki Danga Samo the Chiba Shawala, any Zay Sachi Jichero, any Chugo Zimba Timbition, Zibabi Chawa, Dangala Kibachi Chawa, Nichawa Nida de Mechula Nishi Shada Shawa, Dambango Jalama Chitati Rimbase. Did you songs and again, Japan?
So then here, let's begin with actual teachings of the great deities on the stages of the path to enlightenment by reading through this 4 major outlines, which begins from the greatness of the authors given in order to show that teachings has an immaculate source, right? Second, the greatness of the Dharma given to increase one's faith into instructions. Third, the right way to teach and listen to the Dharma with true greatness. And the fourth, the sequence in which the disciples are to be taught actual instruction, in other words.
Zay Sachi Shapatella teaching us all the launches of Shani Tibi, the Tenelo Chetajan in Banisi, and it any mentioned Nedisha.
So then there are another 2 sub divisions of the 4 major outlines, which are very important to remember, which is relying upon authentic teachers or the qualified teacher, which is entrance the root of one's spiritual path, and having relied upon the one's guru, how can one go through the process of training one's mind? So it is very helpful that if you can, if you can set up those, outlines in a proper sequence and remember this proper sequence, will really help you to have a proper comprehension of the subject matter of the text.
Doing that Dambang Lama Cheta Rimbalani, launch our senior Timbits at the Locheta Rimbani, that Domodriza, then the Locheta Rimbala, Eatana, Nimbo Limbish, Kuatan, Nimbo Chetalin between each, that Domodriza, that Nimbo Chetalin between the Yanichi, and then Lanchi Najalan Yabacheva down, Nimbo Linsing Mochi, that Domodriza, that Nimbo Linsing de la Sonde, Chibuchung, Timo and Lanchi. Manyang Lenzi, Jubin Jenda Timo Rimbanyang Lenzi, Jubi Chimbi Langi Rimbanyang Lenzi. Tanga the cause of Jubi Chimbi Langi Rimbaji, that Jubi Chimbi Langi Rimbalaya, and Taji Sonji, and Tejan Jubi Gotamba Senji Kona Demba, Sendi Jeta Jibi, Senji Shobala Luci, that Tomodita, that Sendi Jeta Jibi Titela, and Jokala Ten Jawa, and Senji Jami Rimba. Ni choga zongwa dang, ni kasa jibi tse dan choga zongwa as. Dang azo senje jibi tse dan choga zongwa sengede, kati saje tamai, senje jibi tse sengede la. Dang azo wate katu jila shana ten risale, senje, wana senje ranji le jena kante che gore se joro.
So now we are on the particular chapter or under the headings of how can we generate this the awakening mind or the bodhicitta, and what is the criteria over true generation of bodhicitta?
다 그런 배산노는 카톡이 될 거죠. 뭐 춘주지 마서도 사제될 센집이 체네 하시에 심발에 셰바샤오 때마도면도 그것이 된다.
So here in the measure of producing the spirit of enlightenment, right? At the end of this chapter, the page 60, where it says the heading, there's a heading where it says the measure of producing the spirit of enlightenment. Understand the measure of producing the spirit of enlightenment as previously explained.
되지. 딱 가서 시행해야 되다. 아니 상추기 센스나 림바니 된생이 되지 가서 시행해야 돼. 상추기 센스나 림바니 된지 상추 센스라 그래라다. 동보.
So now first and foremost important for one to understand when speaking about bodhicitta. So bodhicitta is consists of two aspirations. That is one thing that we really need to understand, which is vital to understand.
이 녀게 내가 서 상추 되니지 림바데 주 센데 상추 되니지 림바레 주셀라 그래. 가서 란데 말에 젠데 되니지 림바레 주셀라 그래. 상추 되니지 림바라 도셀라 그래. 에슬라다.
So there are two aspirations we spoke about earlier. So aspirations of working for the welfare of other sentient beings, and aspiration to gain state of enlightenment for that purpose, right? So here, aspiration to working for the welfare of other sentient beings become an actual cause of producing this spirit of enlightenment, in other words, bodhicitta, and aspiration to attain state of enlightenment becomes a contributory factor for achieving such bodhicitta.
다 대노게 가서 뒤에 가서 연주 시에데 제세 쇼라 이존에 손바다 아니 가서 조제냐면 조제 바데 아데시 존에 장치니가 젠데 되니 줄로 장치 되래선다 마 젠마 마시 젠데 거는 장추 센장주도 다시 녀주 거는 장추 센장주니까 아니 젠데 줄로 장치 되래선다.
So here we have gone through those teachings, in accordance with the Atisha's 7 cause and effect instructions, and Shantideva's exchanging and equalizing self for others. So both of these two instructions are primarily emphasized on how to cultivate which means working for the welfare of other sentient beings.
다 된적이 상추에 로니보데 장비게 타마텔라 가르레오레 데니게 둔제다고 될라 데니게 둔제다고 될라 아니 다 신제탄주 조비 산제라 만거나 된데 되어요게 터민도 되면은 되게 터라 가르쳐고도 동보라니 조비 산제지 고마 마다고 터민도 셀라요데 아니 크게 둔제다고 될라 아니 젠데 란데 되니지 상추 demba데 도세네 괜히 제지고 그래 로기 먼저지어라 괜히 강게 로잖아데 타마텔라 란데 되니지 로데 마제나 델레심베 랑가 메베지 통치고 올라다.
So aspiration to the genuine aspiration to working for the welfare of other sentient beings. When you cultivate such aspirations to work for the welfare of all other sentient beings without exceptions, then which will then lead oneself to the inevitability of engaging in a practice to gain the state of enlightenment for oneself. So this is how the cause one becomes an actual cause, another becomes a door, or which become a supporting factor, or the contributory factor for gaining the state of enlightenment.
Rani Zobe Sanjay Zobe Sanjay Shanchu Mata, the top window singing, Dumbate, and dead of Sunday Jibe Nari Jilla Shanchu is San Lagre Salada.
So with the combination of those two, working for the aspiration to genuine aspiration to work for the welfare of all other sentient beings, and genuine aspiration to attain state of complete enlightenment. For that purpose, with the combination of these two, the state of combination of these two is said to be the bodhicitta. What is meant by bodhicitta? Bodhicitta is, in other words, that consists of these two pure aspirations.
Kanje Nika Shanchu Teni Dimbare, Jendene Jinji Jinyande Yen Soyroa, Jendene Jinji Jinyande Yen La Soydi, Nika Shanchu Dimba Imba Kansela, Ji Jen Zobe Sanje Salakova, De Kobe Chedarani Zobe Sanje Komatabe Sede, Kanje Teni Re, Ji de Ju, Ji de Dimba, Kanje Teki Kwaya Boti Heji Dalada.
So here now, both of these two are actually, aiming towards complete enlightenment, or Shenju Ginyangde, which means the nirvana, the complete state of enlightenment. When speaking about aspiration to working for the welfare of other sentient beings, purpose of working for other sentient beings, the very purpose here refers to purpose of others' purpose, referring to the referring to the nirvana of other beings that is to be established by all other sentient beings. And with this become a cause, the actual cause, and then in order to establish all sentient beings to the state of nirvana, or the state of complete enlightenment, it is important for one to gain the state of enlightenment. Then that is which enables one to focus on one's own nirvana that is to be accomplished by oneself.
Godebola Jenda Tatuba Chena, Karechegures and the Tuakana, Jen Zobe Sanje Sala Kutua Chegare, say the Tombotelada, Tegani, Jenda Deni Dimba Yaina, Qual to Devachena.
So here now, if we explain lucidly here, when speaking about working for the welfare of other sentient beings, while working for the welfare of other sentient beings, the working for the purpose of other beings, here really refers to a genuine aspiration to establishing entire sentient beings, other beings, to the state of enlightenment. That is what is meant by aspiration to working for the welfare of other sentient beings.
The Telepa Quad de Washesona, any Genji Nasa, Ranchin down, any Danzini, then a pontung in the Chachi Gore, etc.
So now if we can, elaborate a little bit about, working for the welfare of other sentient beings here again, is now what really needs for us to work for the welfare of other sentient beings is to now to alleviate the suffering or the sickness of other sentient beings. Sickness here really refers to the sickness of self-grasping and sickness of self-cherishing mind. Those are the two sicknesses that we are aiming towards to alleviate from all other sentient beings.
The Sebala, Setuba, the Rani, the Chebala, Rani, the Nibata dem Chaguro. De Chabala, Rani Yetombo, and Ranchin the Danzini, but the Pane, Rani Zobi Sanji, Tagu, do say lottery.
So now here, in order to establish entire sentient beings to the state of enlightenment, and causing all sentient beings to elevate them from the sicknesses of self-grasping and self-cherishing mind, one need to first of all to eliminate one's own sickness of grasping at self and self-cherishing mind. With the complete elimination of those two sicknesses, one will then be able to gain the state of complete enlightenment, so that one will become then authentic teachers for the elevation of the suffering of other beings.
take you go out the head to do. Tell a Tindrick and Nata Nibo Sevala, and round Jinzi and Nata Sevala, Shanchu Sangore, Danzi Sevala, Tony to Belogore, Deni Tashin about the Ranilo Gores allow you to there was which child.
So now here you say, when you look at this, it's a very, comprehensive and lucid practice. If you really look at this too, how do we really overcome our self-cherishing mind and self-grasping? Where it says, in order to overcome, in order to eliminate this self-cherishing mind, one need to develop a pure bodhicitta, or this, in other words, spirit of enlightenment, in other words. And in order to eliminate this self-grasping, one need to generate wisdom that understands emptiness.
Attaining, any Shanchu sent a country Jangore, any social Dagina you go to Jangi in Bear, Mashi Tender go to Gender Jangi in Bear. That does you social you learn my pounding. Ronane Jet 2 months said the next cover in Jimmy Natoki Chenet the Cheba in Jabunda, the Inchimiji Macedala. Lot of punching near, but the Jito quite legible.
So so out of two, of these two, wisdom that is emptiness and generation of bodhicitta, we are on the particular chapter of how one can generate spirit of enlightenment, the spirit of enlightenment, or the bodhicitta. So here now, when speaking about practicing or generating bodhicitta, well, we need to understand whichever is suitable for oneself, which instruction is more suitable and more conducive for oneself, which is more, which practice and which instruction is more, suitable oneself, one's inclination and one's dispositions, such as, 7 cause and effect instructions, or the, exchanging self for others. However, prior to one's actual practice, one should set those, instructions in a proper sequence.
Jinziniga Nasa de Ngozing, Yanila Taya Tauting Moches and Swayana, Chulus, Tatu Rigi got the Poshamato, Ranila Pitcher members on the quad, better member channel. Roa.
So when you become convinced by a possibility of removing those two sicknesses, self-cherishing and self-grasping, by means of cultivating bodhicitta and wisdom understands ultimate nature of reality, then the name of religion or name of philosophy and so forth is no longer matter to oneself, because that those are the only two methods, those are the only two skillful means to really to eradicate our two sicknesses of self-grasping and self-cherishing. So, however, in general and traditionally, when we're on this particular chapter, the ritual for adopting the spirit of enlightenment, it is done on the basis of adopting ritual, and there's involvement of participating, both the master and also the receivers, the disciples need to be participated in the ritual processes. However, we are unable to do this today. Rather, I will go through the reading of the texts and going through the explanation of that instead of adapting the rituals. So although here it says the ritual for adopting the spirit of enlightenment, the ritual here really refers to the precepts of the bodhicitta.
Yeah. That means the yes show jo go mar sa de ngem lo lo chen ko de do a. Ane jiba choke zong ne jo chen bu de ji zhang wan de ba ye shang su chang bi ne je bo be be ren de gang xie be cha da cha do se xia xin yang da choke xie be jie xie song ba da song do.
So now let's go through the text, okay? Here we're on the page 61. 61, beginning from the how to adopt the spirit of enlightenment through its ritual. The great elder said, referring to Atisha, where he stated that those who wish to train after they generate the spirit of enlightenment, cultivate with effort for a long time the four bases of Brahma, love, and so on. Thereby, they clear away attachment and joy and jealousy, and produce the spirit of enlightenment through a correct ritual.
디제자 나가서 상추기 생에 현달에 네버 템바스 게 송구마로와 디노라 상추기 생의 라질에 제소나 아니 지 차생의 차도의 도서 도고를 송도와.
So normally in the general teachings we will not find the bodhicitta, the generation of bodhicitta is something that become antidotes or impediment for some negative thoughts and emotions. Rather, if you look at this particular text or Lam Rim Chenmo, where it states that if you are able to generate bodhicitta, the pure bodhicitta, it will clear away the attachment and jealousy, right?
세고 세자로 다인여주 권의 장나리 마시 텐데 권의 장와리 타수기 제부터 해비거라 선체 간데지나 따당지마도 선체는 내린 따당지는 매와 내린 차당이 따당면은 차당 용시에 매와.
So it's very clear, if you really train in bodhicitta and generate the bodhicitta, whether you generated bodhicitta by relying upon the instructions of seven cause and effect, or you generated your bodhicitta by relying upon the exchanging and equalizing self with others, whichever the instruction that you may have relied upon, so long as you have generated the bodhicitta, you will have no bias view with regard to all sentient beings. You are able to look at all sentient beings equally without any making discrimination, without any discriminations.
디기 차전의 가르대워서는 상추생 림바진의 장 아니 상추기 생제라 뒤에 던들 해비거라 아니 초가시에 된 상추생 의지라질에 제기 반응도 지래도아.
So this is the sequence we are on. We are in other words, that we are on the point where we are actually, putting ourselves, our effort to engage in the practice of the bodhicitta, the generation of actual bodhicitta. For that, we are receiving this precepts and participating in the ritual processes.
그 초가시에 가서 맞서 담비 준세대니 제 라마치니 치디 주디 용거에 비 준생에 대한 지지는 준전의 용거에 체질이라다 담바생이.
So this instructions and the precepts must be preserved through unbroken lineage by receiving from one's teacher. One's teacher is received from his own teachers, and then we're receiving from our teachers and so forth. So there is a continual preservations of without any breaking of chain of the particular instructions and the precepts.
당연로이다. 시선바 다제 로장네 센체발라 녜바 템바나 아니 대존이 초가샤오스 디세송도 아테링에탄들 사이마다 리도.
So here it says, once you have trained your mind in this way and have firm certainty about developing the spirit of enlightenment, take part in the ritual for adopting it.
제 내가 송제 Mataba Taba Shiba, Taba Munyaba Songwa, Nyana Shijubi Toso Sondo at its Chidanga to Damba Kangal Tendin, Lodon Chibarinde.
So here now, the explanation of the how to adopt the spirit of enlightenment through its ritual has three parts. First, it begins. First, it's saying attaining that which you have not attained, right? First, and second, maintaining and not weakening what you have attained. Then third, the method of repairing the spirit of enlightenment if you do weaken it.
Tombola Sonjo, Kanla Lambi Yu, Kangelimbi Ten, Chetalambi Choka Ko Sondo.
So here then, with regard to attaining the which you have not attained, attaining the spirit of enlightenment which you have not attained has three parts again here. The person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment, and the second, the person who adopts the spirit of enlightenment, and the third, how to take part in the ritual of adopting the spirit of enlightenment.
Okay. Kanla Limbi Yu Sana, Chetanga Sutandre, Swataki Lambayana, Hello Gendiki Tonalanga, Lens, Kanla Yite. Nishanchu saying Dambayana Shuji Jawa Seta Jebi Tonale, and this Sangaji Dambayana Tenda Timbi Jinkoki Tonale, Kanla Lensa Yute, Chetanjavana, Dambasun Yimandawa.
So three precepts here. Here now it says, the person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment, right? So when speaking about the person from whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment, there could be three different individuals who is actually bestowing these precepts, such as one may be the preceptor, three preceptors, in other words. One is the Pratimoksha, the preceptor of individual liberations, who should be a person who has this precept and adopted by himself and observed by him or herself. And the next preceptor would be a bodhisattva's precept. This can be received from one's guru or visualizing the mirrored field, such as Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, then from whom, the person before whom you can adopt the spirit of enlightenment. And the third one is the tantric precepts. The tantric precepts must be received by relying upon one's Vajra master, along with the mandalas, supported and supporting mandalas.
Tate de la Tombo de Doa, Tombo de Lami Shayu Rimba Le, Senji da de Robin, Sheba Le, Ju, Seka Manzela, Kumano de Mensan de Demba, Te Lojala Nebe, Mechokin, Judan da Demba, Goba Shede, Dale Nam Jiji, Geyu Sheni, Shanchu Sembi Damba da Demba, Te de Sone, She Sumba da Timba, Nango Sondo.
So now the person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment, aside from the saying in the stages of the activities of the Guru Kriya Karma, that the person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment should be a master who is qualified, right? The first one. And the great elder did not elucidate any further. Former teacher asserted that it was not sufficient for the person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment just to have the aspirational spirit of enlightenment and to maintaining its precept, but he or she must have the vows of the engaged spirit of enlightenment. This accords with the Jatari who said, after you have come before a teacher who has bodhisattva's vows.
Damba Lensaki, Lamatela, Chache Karugor Sana, Pensa Gaza, Pinju Nika Damba Lemba, Malang Saji Ma Judan Lama Chisa Legor Sondoa. Me said the Judani Chabate, and in Malang Saji Dambale, but a chiller romache. And Shanchu Dambale and Shubala Tijan the Malaba, Loba Rangi Shaggy said the Calibal Judan Sondoa. Then you the Demba Chilla, Chicken dinner, and Shanju saying Dambate Legor Sondoa.
So now here it's very clear in the text itself, there is the person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment. The master who is qualified in bestowing this precepts, where it says like it is not sufficient. The master that it was not just sufficient for the person before whom you adopt the spirit of enlightenment just to have an aspirational spirit of enlightenment, but rather it says and to maintaining its precept, but rather he or she must have the vows of the engaged spirit of enlightenment. So, in other words, the person or the preceptor who is actually bestowing those precepts or the bodhisattvas must have both aspirational bodhicitta as well as the engaged spirit of enlightenment. So it is pretty obvious. It is obvious, if even in our common sense, that someone who do not possess such precepts, certainly cannot, bestow the precepts to others. There's nothing such an individual can be bestowed because he or she is not possessing such qualities, right? So therefore, it is very important for all of us to be very careful when speaking about receiving precepts, particularly of the bodhicitta and tantric precepts and the pratimoksha and so forth. And so even the preceptors without qualifications cannot grant these precepts. And we also as a receivers, we should make sure that such an individual actually possess, by retaining such qualifications to bestow precept to others. So there it says now, we're reading through the text, okay? The 10th Teaching Sutra, Dasa Dharmaka Sutra mentions the Sharvaka within the context of generating spirit of enlightenment, after others have exhorted some persons to adopt it. It is said in reference to the person being exhorted by others to adopt the spirit of enlightenment, after Sharvakas have engaged them and create them in a sense of disenchantment with cyclic existence.
Tanda de chi nga su shangchu ki sen de damba de nyeto le shugo se da ni nyeto le shangchu sen ki damba na shi be de ma re es ni nyeto de shangchu sen ki damba leng ma re shugo ma ro ni kono yi kyu ma she ba kono jen ma do ba de ni chi lo ko nan de ge nga su nyeto le to do sen chi yo a
now here the Nyante or the Shervakas would him or herself, the Shervaka or herself, the individual themselves, will not actually receive the Bodhisattva's precepts. However, they are said to be a Nyante or Tedok, which means the companions of hearings of the teachings of the Buddha. So, since being the Shervakas as a companion of hearing the teachings of the Buddha, he or she can either whether even if they are in on the state of Sharvaka, on the Sharvaka belongs to the Sharvaka vehicle, but he or she can still encourage someone to receive the Bodhisattva's precept. But it is not to say that Sharvaka him or herself can grant the Bodhisattva's precepts. They cannot, because they do not possess themselves this Bodhisattva's vow.
마수 규마 세다 제쇼 세나 렌징에 저지 마도 니토를 남바 렌쇼시 대마리 그 규비 되서
So
다들 최주변 도기 손
so here it,
얘네한테도 도제를 면도게
so here it is encouraging, or in other words, that the Sherbakas are encouraging other individual to receive the precepts of the Bodhisattvas.
다 렘비 댄싱이 진도 땡게 말로네 가서 봐서 자긴다 렘비 댄네 손도 다 가서 렌사 유유된 디사지 다 오늘 랭에게 가서 될 차차 가르 거라서나 진진다리에서 레지봉 댄다 삼바 퓨손 소바다 덴베 셰손바다 하다 로로소바 류당 삼비고네 편세 지롱아 탕제 데이된의 롱양 데네 랑전 제발레 코에 이종ala chewa demba sherabdan niji chewa shesomba tar kashebata je lanje remba lo jane shanchu ten yinjiwi nyowa jongze nyeba shila sheba yeno sonde tere ta chaje.
So now here let's read through the text, which is the second headings, which I meant it is the person who adopts the spirit of enlightenment, right? The person who adopts the spirit of enlightenment in general, as Jatari said, the person who adopts the spirit of enlightenment are sons or the daughters of good lineage, who are sound in body and mind. Thus, the deities, nagas, etc., who are mentally and physically fit for arousing the aspirational spirit of enlightenment, are suitable person for adopting the spirit of enlightenment. Nevertheless, as a commentary on the difficult points of the lamp for the path to enlightenment, Bodhi Marga Pradita Panchka says, at this point, the person who adopts the spirit of enlightenment are disgusted with the cyclic existence, mindful of death, and have great wisdom and compassion. So the person who adopts the spirit of enlightenment have trained their minds in the stages of the path experienced earlier, and have thereby gained some transformative experience with respect to the spirit of enlightenment. These are the conditions or criteria required for individual who have a desire to receive the precepts. So now it is our turn to see whether we have such qualifications to receive the Bodhisattva's vows or not. Let's take 10 minutes break. Can be the person who can adopt the state of enlightenment. So the beings in the realm of Jiang Dominion, which is Jiang Dominion literally means the northern realms who deny to listen to a sound, who is denial of listening to a sound, in other words. That is what is meant by Jiang Dominion. So such beings who are in that particular realms do not have a manifesting sort of delusions or the mental affections, so they do not have much sufferings. So when speaking about other realms, such as Dekam, Zukam, Zumekam, desire realms, form realms, and formless realms. So the first two realms, the beings within the first two realms, Dekam and Zukam, or the desire realms and the form realms, can receive the spirit of enlightenment, can adopt the spirit of enlightenment. And however, the beings who are in the formless realms, they cannot, they cannot receive, adopt the spirit of enlightenment newly. In other words. So it is very clear, because why the beings who are in the formless realms cannot adopt the spirit of enlightenment is because in such realms where there's no sentient beings can be seen by eyes, they cannot be seen by eyes because there's no form in it. There's no existence of the form. So therefore, in order to adopt such a spirit of enlightenment, you should generate a strong sense of working for the welfare of other sentient beings by understanding the suffering of other beings. So now, in the desire realms, such as hell realms, and then animal realms, can also, beings who are in that realms can also, be the person who can adopt the spirit of enlightenment. So we have already gone through this, the paragraphs by saying this, that's all deities, nagas, and etc. Right? So naga belongs to the animal realm. So. So we'll find very clearly, if you look at the teachings of the Buddha himself, the sutra, there are some sutras that mention very clearly there are individuals who adopt the spirit of enlightenment in the hell realms, and as well as in the animal realms. So now, maybe any oh. Oh. So now, when it comes to the mental reliance, in other words, the mental attitude that is to qualify oneself mentally to receive the bodhisattva's vow, or the precepts of the bodhisattvas. So for that, what is required is to, first of all, to have a genuine faith in the Buddhas. One should have a genuine faith in the Buddhas, and have a genuine compassion towards all other sentient beings. And one should have a genuine patience to be able to tolerate all those, whatever the hardships there may be on the process of, generating bodhicitta.
다 가서기 코로 가스버버 코로랑이 또 놀러장 코로 거 방진의 시에디 다 마시 된된 거는 렌지 거서는 하산보다 하산에 아니 다 가서 배신주로다 배상주 생생의 열에 대마토도 상주 생전용에 대 센대 작으로 와 아니 다신여주 거는 상주 생장을 계시잖아 아니 하산에 아니 다 상주 생문제 선내리 지 가서 배신주로다 상주 생생내리 관계 드리지 견달래려데 상주기 센대 다가라 장용으로 가서 단도 로장이는 바 코로랑이 또는 세대도 과 다가나 되기로 와.
So when we go through the proper sequence or the proper process of generating the bodhicitta, either by relying upon the instructions of 7 cause and effect, or by relying upon the exchanging self with itself, or the exchanging and equalizing self with others. So, however, so long as you're able to, set all those sequence, all those steps of generating bodhicittas, beginning from Mashe, or the recognition of all sentient beings as one's mother, all the way to the resolute intention, Laksam. So then, once you have completed all those steps in the proper sequence, the processes, you're able to complete all those processes generating within oneself, then the very moment, the next moment is the time for generating actual bodhicittas.
지도에는 그 가서 세대에서는 센들을 생기 때들 주 로장이 ren다들이 같이 전체에서 시고로 때때마 생기들 지도 때때마들 못하디고 못지가서라 그래 단다들 못쳐데 때 전체 라로 고알련샤는 리그로 생기 때때마다.
So here this is the causal causes that is required for one to actually generate bodhicittas. When it comes to the mental attitudes to generate bodhicittas, by setting up all those causes which leads oneself to the actual generation of actual bodhicittas.
지도는 어떤 때때마서 뭐저 때때걸 고알련로 변한 것도 단대 저런데 가서 변한 자초 가서 구자고는 데디 구자들아니데 구자니 때때버리 못하대 때때버생이 저러 때때버서 더 고알련이 가슈는 자존세든지 얘는 요거도 사변선한테 다 해봐지 리셔지 인수 줘봐도 때때면 저한테 되려로.
So when speaking about the reliance, everything that we talked about earlier, that when speaking about the generating bodhicittas, bodhicitta is not something that can be generated from nowhere. It requires its own particular reliance of its own causes and conditions. So everything, similarly, when we speak about Tentempa, which is supporting and support, and supporting and support really refers to the the dependent originations, in other words, dependent originations, or it speaks about the cause and effect. When a cause, the effects relies, actually the effects coming into existence really relies upon its causes, and causes is the one that produces its effects, right? For example, when speaking about the reliance and the relyings some have in a different nature. There are others may have a same nature as well. Maybe the conceptually conceptually distinct and essentially identical.
데데 때때마 생기데 고알련서는 변한 상추기 세대 메팀비줄에 때는 상추세 매고 차도로 와. 인지미지 그 티비제데 가르러 거서나 네 티비 생지다 네 티비 리텐치라 고알해서나 네 야데 진제이 고알래 그 제메 인소나 텐데스케 말에 레가스케 제고 말와 그 지체 초발에 때는 초윤디 어느 상추기 생기 지체 가르 초고를 용발을 가르 거래서라서나 네 센데다 리텐이 So
now here, it is very important, everything that's coming into being existence cannot coming into being from nowhere. All things that exist they have, all of them have their own, its own causes and conditions, its own reliance of causes and conditions, right? Similarly, when speaking about, generating bodhicitta, requires its own causes and conditions. Also, what we call the Tumbikin, which means the Tumbi Sim. You should have the the favorable mental continuum is said to be the Tumbi Sim. Favorable mental continuum is required, and similarly, favorable physical condition is required for one to generate bodhicitta. So, because without having such favorable conditions and causes and conditions, bodhicitta cannot be produced out of nowhere.
되지. 당가 거기서 봐봐 소소 제가 가르도잖아. 아니 지 코이 님이사는 연중이 삼바. 아니 신제나지 동해라서는 이제 되게 강라 강사지 소소라지 하나 릴을 봐봐도 밀을 치마 저거로게 영화에 비까 질 키소나 아니 인지비 라마 쳇다 데비지나 아니 말라샤 아바나로 지스니가 소소게 년에 좀 봐 영에 진소는 예봐도 아니 라마 쳇대 지긴 도나 아니 샤주생이 남바데 쇼고도
So now here with such requirements, when it comes to the requirements, the favorable conditions of the mental favorable conditions, should have renunciations by reflecting upon the suffering nature of cyclic existence. Similarly, individual should have a compassion, generate compassion by reflecting upon the suffering of all other sentient beings. With this kind of generation of renunciation and compassion, one should be on the in a point where, when you think about the suffering nature of cyclic existence, when you think about the suffering nature of all other sentient beings, your pores of your bodies, the hairs of your bodies will will stand up, and also the tears will automatically rolls down your cheeks. And this is the kind of physical and mental experience that it is required for one to receive the bodhisattva's vow. On this basis, one can then request a guru who is qualified to give this precepts, from whom you can receive the precept of bodhisattva.
다 디기 걸라 가서 상주스 내셔 생기 남셔고에나 나나 차진들이 거 봤을 때 시에바체 더가랑이다.
So this is what one should understand, is that if I am willing to receive the precepts of the bodhisattvas, I should have such qualifications. I should complete those requirements or the criteria.
리땡이 차네 상주 생기만 제사게 리땡비 다보 임바데 주메체 리땡이 차네 고 란신이체 다 센데된 베츠이 주네 센데 조고도.
So when it comes to the physical conditions, the physical appropriateness or the physical conduciveness of receiving the bodhisattva's vow, and we as taken a rebirth in high realms such as human beings, we have obtained this precious human rebirth. We do not ask. It is not necessary for us to ask a question of whether we are qualified to receive or not. But what is important for us is to really see the mental, conditions, whether you're mentally conducive enough to receive those bodhisattva's vow. So therefore, as I said earlier, we are certainly, physically we are qualified to receive the bodhisattva's vow, because we find in the many texts by says David and which means our precious human rebirth is even more precious than wish fulfilling jewel. So why we just saying more precious and which was fulfilling jewel is because we are suitable to receive the bodhisattva's vow and so forth.
다 렘비 초가 될라 로고 당금 로고다 지다 렘비 초가라 송체 아니 달라 조이 영원 조송 세대레 조와 응의진주 송제 대송는 동보 조이 초가라 네 동보 장조 체바 전당 초사바 아니 삼바 장와오 송도 당금 로는 로인다
So now Rinpoche said he will go just keep reading through the text now. Let's read through the text right now. Here we are on this page 63, how to take part in ritual of adopting the spirit of enlightenment, right? The explanation of how to take part in ritual of adopting the spirit of enlightenment has three parts: the preparation for the ritual, actual ritual, and the conclusion of rituals. And the preparation for the rituals, the preparation for the ritual has the three sections. Performing the special precepts of going for refuge, and amazing the collections of mirrors, purifying your attitude.
다 동보라 가 삼바장라 송지 동보라 양보라 송지 네 제제 추제 상바 당 소와도지 조선조 아 조선이 로저 아
렘시 송체로 제동 아니
알레 니데
야
니데 지레다
방
저도 게들 갈 도데 데다 딱 로위다
라소름
치사 동보라 송제 다 초칼렘발라 타지 제데레도 동보라 송제 년칸 진신 대장바 아니 가다 대장네 추제 상바 아니 소와도지 조선조와 당 조스 송이 하저줘바 샤오 동보네 송도와 대바도 로차되게
땡이 로민도름지. So the preparation for the ritual has three sections: performing the special, amazing the collection minutes, purifying the urge. Then performing the special practice of going for refuge. Performing the special of going for refuge has the three parts. After decorating the place of the ritual and setting up preparations for the three jewels, arranging the offerings, and supplication and going for refuge. And third, it's stating the precepts of refuge.
nga zo ya dongbo xie ge je den zhe ben na dangbo gong ma ni de lian ge ne shang ju sen be dangbo dang ne sang ha ge dangbo xie ge ne dongbo jiang zhe zang ji dangbo ben na so ta ge dangbo jing ye ba de lian ge do so ta ji dangbo de dangbo gang ga ge dian ye song do dang ji za wa de ge dan da la de ge dongbo jiang zhe dangbo lian sa ge yu le song ge de dang da jiang zhe dangbo lian sa ge yi sa na jiang zhe dangbo lian ba la ne ta ji ka de xie ge song ya de.
So the first why it is saying is when it's saying the performing the special precepts of going for refuge has the three parts, right? It's after decorating the place and place of the ritual and setting up the representations of the three jewels and arranging the offerings. It's because now in order for one to receive the bodhisattva's vow and the tantric vows or the Vajrayana vows, one need to first receive Kemtre Domba, which is the precept of the refuge, or it is also known as individual liberation precepts or the Pratimoksha. The Pratimoksha or the individual liberation precepts is the foundation for the other two precepts, without which we cannot receive the other two precepts.
정으로 지금 상하게 담바 많아 거라 제용이 총용을 장족이 가서 개념이 담바 나오도 지체되래.
So the reason why His Holiness always, begin to give precepts, the lay precepts, which are Genyi Domba, which is Pratimoksha, or the individual liberation precepts, or the refuge precepts, prior to granting the Vajrayana precepts.
아니 동보 때때는 사ချက်tradition 사ချက်가르치잖아 간지 거르잖아 디바진지 주인비 사쇼서 사실 레바 시신 장와 대를 바중에 장 알까자 장치 누라 바진이 장니 당면도 쇼 루바다 所比追求配的熊也将修建执行不灭多什么多了，工作上的容年罗马因啥的罗马了说不当波地拉说不上就身边故入呢车往出啊，对不？就是修是可啥修是修建，拉来拉说把面多拉来当面多了说比确这有些阶段就吧啊，人们的现在的见了说不那大概些给大概些些，那给些年修比电池面多的肩膀项目，恐怕那年送的。
So here now, then performing the spiritual practice of going for refuge as the 3 parts. So the first part here, after decorating the place of the ritual and setting up representation of the 3 jewels, arranging the offerings, then make neat and purify a place in area devoid of sinful beings. In other words, devoid of the individual who has negative thoughts and so on. And there's then one spreads about and anoint the area with the 5 cow products. Here is referring to the urine, cow dung, butter, milk, and yogurt, as well as with marvelous scented waters of the sandalwood and etc. And then scatter about fragment cut flowers arranged on the high thrones or small throne or the platforms, representation of the 3 jewels, and have been cast in metal or made with other materials, the volumes of the scripture and the like, an image of the bodhisattvas, and prepare as well as you are able the object of offerings such as canopies and the like, as well as the flowers and so forth, and also make ready musical instruments, foods, ornaments, etc. Then prepare a throne for the teacher and decorate it with flowers.
Commandant, that's on Jilas and a commandant, who to Gendi Jinego down, and Joy Tomatan with Gone, so Sabadan, Choba Mena, Choba Tanche. And the Choba Mena Kezan Le Sombata Rech, Katse, Pure, Sochi Jula. Yana, you may be Nathan Chamberzene, Jubi Lo Mission at Sanshang Gode, Joe Bella. Mais Joe Bella Nage, Moi dans Science, Saint Judus, Chopa Nebe, Meche son guess. All Meche son table the chilo.
That's it. The former teachers say that you should first accumulate merits by venerating and serving the community and by giving offerings, cakes to the spirits, as it says in the Sutra of the Auspicious On. The Bhadra Kalpika Sutra. If you have no offerings, you can accomplish this even through offerings just as the fringe of some cloth. But if you have the resources, you must seek offerings earnestly and without deceit and arrange them in such a way that your friends will be astonished. When some Tibetan teachers ask a great elder to confer the ritual for generating the spirit of enlightenment at Samya or the Samyu, he said that they would not generate it because they had made inferior offerings. He further said that with respect to the representation, you definitely must have consecrated images. Oh, sorry, maybe martyrs, lawyer.
데르다 세자 대중가 저 간제 대중가 저 소소 매와 인소나 이지 미지 제고 말에 로마트가 천천 디그레스 이니 게시 유에네 베드 피마라트네 제지어 말에 네데 쳔부제네 아니 초바 강자체제 피고를 빼나 조지 베드 베비컬라 아니 추비기 제 다저 매와 인자는 상주생 넘버 제고 말에 던르기 송진여의 송도아 그래서 내가 첨부래도아
So here now, when speaking about, try your best to make an offerings, right? Offerings, arrange all those, that offerings. If you have the resources that can make offerings to the object of refuge, you can do so. But if that is not possible, then whatever that you have, you can make an offering. It doesn't really require for you. It doesn't necessarily for you to have all those resources. In MS, the assembly of offering is not needed. Whatever that you have, you can make these offerings. So here, the further it says that respect to representation of identifying must have a consecrated image of Buddha. In other words, image of Buddha Shakyamuni, the founder of our teachings. And with respect to the volumes of the scripture, you should have a perfection of wisdom sutras, as big or the bigger than the verse summary of the perfection of wisdom in the 8,000 lines.
So
here now, so long as when it comes to the image of the Buddha, it is very important for to have the image of the Buddha is something that is authentic. It is done appropriately, in accordance with in accordance with the actual knowledge of how to draw or how to paint the Buddha's image. So without which, of course, although there is no difference whether the Buddha's image is made out of metal or made out of bronze and so on and so forth, there's not much differences so long as the actual image is concerned. But when it comes to the material itself, if you have a better materials or with the better quality of the Buddha's image, and there is more chance for us to take care of this Buddha's image and pay more respect and reverence, so that you accumulate more mirrors. But if you just buy a Buddha's image without having any proper blueprints and so on and so forth, then finally you realize that this is not an appropriate Buddha's image, and then we just dump this everywhere. So this again, we accumulate negative karma out of that.
Tendri chana pe nanga dijing aso nyane tu na ma tu na yang ji sanje da tendri chu la deba shu chenpo yong yin so na ne sanje gi ji ko che den da yang so le ba xie xin jun do de mo ji de lo yin na yang de la ba li gi chuo sa do ya da yang so so deba de bi den pe ke chenpo ro de jang de dang ba xiu ma je ke che ke ma ro
So to receive these precepts of the precepts of individual liberations, or the refuge precepts, it is important for us to have actual image of the Buddha, and also image of the Buddha, which is authentic image of the Buddha. In other words, we talked about earlier the authenticity of the Buddha that we talked about earlier, and then also at the same time, it is important to have also, the volumes of the sutras, sutra, which is the verses, summary of the perfection of wisdom, or in 8,000 lines, or the Radhakuda Samaya Gata, or the 8,000 verses of the perfection wisdoms, and so forth. So with this kind of thing, it's really important, because whether we can really practice in accordance with the 8,000 lines of the of perfection wisdom, or and so forth, but if we as we have a great faith in our Buddhas and the teachings of the Buddha, it is important for us to have this as an object of refuge for our accumulation of merits.
파비촌나 시엔 장시 추비 띵지 종차 송된시 되바 샤오지 데는 홈에 추시에 그 정보 그 테모자와라 라메 추지 신나 윤된라 녀저리 추진나 제 윤된라 이 타바네 당외 제도 주라 사제다상 추셈바 베린데나 라니 두바 산네 대거 연라 된바 셰드 슈고 손도
So here now, after you have done this, as he explained in the stages of the path of stages of the activities of the Guru, you then invite the assembly of noble beings, and recite 3 times, and clouds of offerings formula, Dharma Maha Tarani, and praise them. And next, the student put on good clothes, and sit with the hands joined respectfully. The Guru encouraged the students to wholeheartedly generate clear faith in the good qualities of the field for the accumulating the collections of the merits and sublime wisdom, and has them imagine that they had seated in front of each of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and then enjoin them to slowly perform the 7 branches of worship. So here now, it's the most earlier, the Tibetan scholar said that when you adopt the spirit of enlightenment according to the lineage transmitted through Nagarjunas and Shantideva, you practice the 7 branches of worship, and that when you adopt it according to the lineage from Maitra and Asanga, you practice only 2 obeisance and offerings. What is more, in the later case, it says, if you were to practice the confession of sins, you would need to feel regret, and thus you would be thus you would be unhappy. The spirit of enlightenment must be generated in one whose mind has joy and delight.
Tēnā mōgō kīma dōgī. Tēsā shiwāla tē tēnyē chōla dīpa chē gōgō mārē, kāsā yālā nī mā tō gōgō mārē, dīpa shāpi yālā tē chē sōnā jōpa chēnā sēnā mā gāwa yōnggō rē, shāngchū sēnā dāmbā lēmbī kāla, gāwa tō tōhnā dēmī kō nē lēng gōrwa sēnā lō mārē, tē jinsā yāndā mārē sōndō wā.
So here, whatever it says is not correct, right? Because it says, it is said the most earlier Tibetan scholars, what they have said is, now when you adopt the spirit of enlightenment according to the lineage transmitted through Nagarajunas and so, to practice 7 limb practice or worship, and then when you adopt according to the lineage from the mature Asanga, you practice only 2 obeisance and offerings. And then so, and it also said that if there's a regret and remorse with regard to your negative deeds that you have committed in the past, then you will not have joyful experience, and you will not have a delightful experience, so that you will not be able to receive the Bodhisattva's vow. Because in order to receive the Bodhisattva's vow, you should be delighted, you should be receiving the Bodhisattva's vow joyfully. So, however, this argument is not not authentic for the argument of receiving the precepts of Bodhisattvas.
Jo chenpe senche da dambi choka satsewa da chubi choka la soba sheso ji du la sondo sheso se sokuno jone du bari ma do jo je lo la yala dinga me ba mare so.
So this position is incorrect, or however it says, right? Very clear, right? With respect to the rituals of the spirit of enlightenment and the vows, the great elder is stated, Atisha stated, obeisance of offering rituals and so forth, including the other 5 branches of the worship with the phrase and so forth. It clearly says in the stages of the activities of the Guru.
Oh, teacher. Ta lame sha rimba le yala dinga senchi bi ngod shawa sebo sombi shedan jinsen deta yena ne ludu da shawala yi lula yang mechewa kelan goso sondo der.
So here it says now, he clearly says in the stages of the activities of the Guru that you should practice the 7 branches before you generate the spirit of enlightenment. Further, if you do accept the reasonings regarding regret in the position given above, then you must conclude that the spirit of enlightenment is not generated in the system of Nagarajunas and Shantideva.
Ti jinsen yanda rawa di joje lula shangchu ke sen damba bada chiga mena ludu dan karsa thome ki lula yan shangchu sen ma chewa chiba chi jang rawa ni chi ki lula maga na ma chana chi ki lula maga na chi karchen chegre se de ma su towa rawa.
So it is clear that if one is unable to generate the bodhicitta in accordance with the instructions of Atisha 7 cause and effects, then suddenly it is not possible for one to generate the spirit of enlightenment in the system of Nagarjuna and Shantideva.
Tata yasha kumino mato ngate tanda me sasa mare nge lensen chi lendo sasu ta lensen chi ma zosa mare ta yasha yi. Ta nga zo de hwa de jero jada ne ta yin da nge ta kasingi ma nga zo na yi re nga zo thoma me ba ne tanda ba de kare jene ha ba se la yi na nga zo beze che yo re se na ran de ran ni ji ko yin bi tanda la beze ta thoma me ba ne tanda ba de beze che we re da 아니 대바행게 대화대 마종한테 가래 만동아래 살아와이나 아니 상추 세면에 라바래 인자는 다네 내가 치 상추 이 생생인데 레샤 인자는 다 디데레서 등에 조비 상제시 마타 주바도 상추 센데 뒤에 마동아지 냐네 제기니 아니 제 네바대야 아니 되나셔be 아마나지 신절로도 소서네 아니 상추 산라 가와다 좋아다 되거네 다네도 오지나 통하다 말하니까 야부 차서로.
So now let's dedicate our merits by thinking that why I have not been able to achieve the happiness that I long to achieve. Right from the beginning, this time up until now, I've been longing to achieve such the state of happiness, but I haven't been able to achieve this because it is due to my own self-cherishing mind, and it is due to not being able to identify and not being able to generate bodhicitta within my continuum. So now, having found how important, having understood how important it is for me to generate bodhicitta, I will put my effort and exert my effort to engage in the practice of the practice to cultivate bodhicitta until I gain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So, therefore, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions, may I able to engage in the practice of bodhicitta and generate bodhicitta. Please bless me to be able to do this.
Dāgī jīnyī sābī gīwā dī, dīndān rōwā kīnā kāmbīn, chābā jīzān lōsān chābā yī, dīmbī nīmbō rīndō sējī shū, sājī bīch, shūjī mēdō rāng, rī rā lī jī nyendē jīmbān dī, sājī shīndō mīndē bīwā yī, Rogen nanda shen la shu ba shu, jie wa gyun du yang da nanda, zhi mi chu ji be la no shu jin, sa dan lang ji yun de ra zo ne, lo ji chang ge go bo nyun do shu, yi dang gu ru la, mi zhi la ga na ya da ya mi, de ne rin du be ne mi. Kada yamba kanshi saba de, no mi ma re ke don jowa na, nan jen ja ye ombo do ju ji, dhyama sun bi ce da kyun do yang, jan bi yang ju ce bi ji zon de, den bi rin ba kyun san lang ju chu, nian nian zhu bi ji na nian shi shu, rang ge chi xin do bi lang ju ne, 修照自愿长愿道给解，若业业界明报谁些年，家业担保有人在多解，担保人前就给我交保，乔江娘报就别说的呢，年纪轻不也让就报也。 遍地对对，随我写不休，随经教育民用成年人，列住上求浪就真别讲，浪的浪就一浪别的心，教育自保人都终究尽，浪上主别亲亲主西亲，别见世界门当。 明明见，才让更多家园安保也。难道难道这我马就见？刚才天把求了就是见，最近住了尊巴天边前，土地能知道都主席见，扎西将子修根朝就见，就在那面国菜绕店。 那个陈的数据接报道，罗上电笔这边撒送去，作业面试大多年就接，看着让人过于心安适，平当的我毛的永远的，现在是我的。 叫作业，小别身体不多点就紧，小别八月接到钱包的，更多上不这样的见的，得到根据就是道路线，给我得到当前让多么，就从西边叫我当姐姐，我刚刚就多我不的。 大仙给月早晚的跟讲，让我世界绕多我节。 Oh yeah, thank you, everybody.
Good night. Good night.